Recycling Commission has asked me to announce that they'll be having free composting seminars, which will include earth machine demos. They'll be from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Highway Garage at 28 North Street on Saturday, July 23rd, Saturday, July 30th, Saturday, August 6th. And you can learn about reducing your trash and get the inside info on those earth machines. So hopefully you can attend. Last chance for getting something from the food truck before we start. I'm Angela Harkness, Westford's town moderator. Thank you to all of you who were able to make it here today. I particularly want to welcome those of you who may not have attended before or who have only been to one or two town meetings in the past. We look forward to new points of view, to your questions and comments, and most importantly, to your votes. We will be voting on 19 articles today, determining, as the legislative body of this town, how our tax dollars are spent and some of the rules we live by here in Westford. In a democracy, every vote you cast is important. Here at town meeting, your voice and your vote affect issues that are closest to all of our everyday lives. Thank you to our town manager, Jody Ross, town staff, and our buildings and facilities staff who have again arranged things so that we'll all be comfortable and safe as we exercise our responsibility to vote. I can't tell you how good a job these guys do. They really make me look good. Please note that there are tents along the sides for those who may need to get out of the elements, and there's a first aid tent also available to those in need. Bathrooms are in the back to my left and also inside the Westford Academy building. We have some new things going on here today, instituted in an effort to make attendance easier. There's a family-friendly area in the back where you see the two tents on the right and the left. Can you wave there from the family-friendly area? Yeah. You can spread out a bit more if you wish back there. Additionally, we have meeting mentors on the sidelines Can I have the mentors stand up and raise their hands, please? There's one on each side. Here we go. If you have a procedural question and you don't wish to approach the microphone, you can first try one of these mentors and they'll see if they can assist you and get your answer without your having to speak out. They're all wearing buttons that say, "Ask me about town meeting." Also, as I've already said a couple of times, the Twisted Pickle food truck will be in the back, and they'll be there when we break for lunch, so you won't have to leave the grounds to eat. One more thing. In an effort to move the meeting along, we have installed a town meeting speaker clock, which you can see up here at the front. This clock will note when a speaker has held the microphone for more than 2 minutes. We're not going to have a hook that yanks you out. It's meant to be self-regulating. It's just so you know that you've spoken for more than 2 minutes and will hopefully voluntarily wrap it up. Most people don't speak anywhere near 2 minutes, so really it shouldn't be a problem. I'm not discouraging anyone from speaking or making their points. This clock will just let you know how long you've been at the microphone. When you do stand up, please follow the instructions on each mic. State your name and address, keep your comments brief and to the point. Do not repeat what others have already said. And if you have previously spoken on an issue, let others who have not speak first. When you checked in, you were given an orange voter card like this one and a handheld clicker like this one. If you don't have either of these things, you need to go back to the tellers and they'll sort you out. Please do not leave Westford Academy with your clicker. You can go to your car, you can go to the restrooms or to the food truck, but do not leave the grounds with the clicker in your pocket. If you leave for any reason, even if you intend to come back, you need to hand the clicker into the tellers and get a new one when you come back. At the end of the meeting, the clickers must be returned to the boxes. And please, again, do not leave with the clickers in your pocket. There are microphones by which any speaker can speak after being recognized by the moderator. If you wish to speak, you can use whatever microphone is closest to you. There are 2 in the center and 1 on either side. Unless given special permission by the meeting, non-voters may not address the meeting, and under no circumstances may they vote. You will either be voting by holding up your orange voter card or by using your clicker. If Article 1 regarding the clicker use passes, I'll give further instructions on that method. Otherwise, when I call for the vote, I'll first ask that those in favor hold up their orange cards. Then I'll ask you to put your cards down and ask the no votes to hold up their cards. Please hold your cards high so that I can see them. We will be working from this pollen-colored special town meeting motions booklet. The motions booklet has the wordings of all the motions we'll be discussing today and the recommendations of the relevant town boards. If you don't have a pollen-colored motions booklet, you can get one now at the table behind me. If you'd like to follow online, you can go to westfordma.gov/ATM2022 or use the QR code printed on the motions booklet. We have 2 housekeeping motions before we begin. First, non-voters may not address the meeting without your permission. Therefore, I will ask now that the town meeting allow those folks to address the meeting. These would be town employees, town council, and town-hired consultants who are not Westford voters, but who will be participating in our discussion by virtue of their positions, by making presentations, and by answering questions. May I have a motion to allow those individuals to address the meeting? Is there a second? This requires 2/3 of the meeting. All in favor, please raise your orange voting cards. Down, please. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Secondly, your motions booklet has been printed. In your motions booklet has been printed the full text of the motions we'll be voting on. Rather than having to read every word aloud before each motion is discussed, may I have a motion to accept the wording as it is printed in the motions booklet for each article? Is there a second? All in favor, please raise your cards. Down, please. All opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Finally, with due respect for the value of the time of every person attending here today, I nevertheless want to emphasize that every question is welcome. Feel free to ask about the facts of any article or the particulars of any process we're following. If you have a question about something, it's likely someone else on the field does as well. We live in a democracy, but to make it work, we have to work for it. And democracy works best when the greatest number of people participate. So I hope you enjoy your experience here today and leave feeling you've accomplished something. Next time, I hope you'll bring a friend. Before we go to Article 1, I'm going to call on the town manager to introduce some new employees in town.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our new Community Wellness Coordinator, Nicole Lavalette. Welcome. It's a new position. And we've had 4 promotions to department heads that I'd like to introduce. Ray Dick for the Health Director, Michelle Collette, Recreation Director, Mark Warren, Water Superintendent, and Jeff Goodwin, Facilities Director. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. And now if everyone can please turn to page 3 of your pollen-colored motions booklet and Article 1. Under Article 1, I have a motion for approval of the tabulation of votes at this town meeting using electronic vote tabulators. Is there a second? At annual town meeting in 2019, voters passed a resolution requesting that the town look into the possibility of electronic vote counting. In October of that same year, a system was presented to special town meeting for review, but the voters were not comfortable supporting it at that time. While such systems were not in widespread use back then, they have since become very popular, and today over 70 Massachusetts towns use electronic vote tabulators, or EVTs, to count their votes at town meeting. In 2021, the Select Board authorized further investigation into the use of EVTs, which has included communications with other communities who use clickers, review of various reports from those communities and from the Mass Moderators Association about their experiences, and interviews with several product vendors. This research has shown the system we are considering today to be affordable, simple to use, reliable, secure, and anonymous. I'd like to take a moment here at this time to thank Mike Wells, Tom Barry, and Steve Edwards for their assistance in gathering and evaluating this information and conducting the vendor reviews. A hand-counted vote at town meetings can take about 20 minutes. That same vote, tabulated by electronic devices, takes 90 seconds. Hand counts are not unusual, occurring either when requested by 7 voters or when the vote is too close for the moderator to call. Secret ballots also occur with some frequency, whenever requested by 20 voters, and because of the necessity of handing out and collecting the ballots and counting each one by opening and looking at it, secret ballots take even longer to count than regular hand-counted votes. An average town meeting may have as many as 3 standard hand-counted votes, which would add at least a full hour to the length of the meeting. The product being considered today works on a closed system using a dedicated computer that is not connected to Wi-Fi or the internet in any way, making it very secure. Votes cast by electronic tabulators are also anonymous. Your vote is private and yours alone, and votes counted in this way will automatically and always fulfill the secret ballot request. The system mechanically calculates a 2/3 or any other kind of majority necessitated, eliminating the risk of mathematical error. It also completely does away with the risks inherent in the moderator having to estimate whether a voice, standing, or hold up your card vote goes one way or the other when the vote is close. In addition to myself and Director of Technology Mike Wells, a representative from the vendor, Meridia, Sean McPeak, is here today to answer any questions and help us run the system. If you support the use of clickers by passing Article 1, they'll be used to count the votes for the remainder of the meeting whenever a hand count is requested or required. I'll be happy to take any questions about this. At the microphone to my right.
Good morning, Kathy Lynch on Rush Road. I have a comment. I'm concerned about electronic vote tabulators because electronic systems are hackable and trackable. Many of us have had the experience of having our email or social media hacked. Just recently, mine was. In a close vote, I am more comfortable with paper. Electronic votes are hidden from all of us, as opposed to using paper ballots, seeing who holds up a card, hearing the voices shout out aye or nay, or doing a visual count. On controversial votes where there may be significant pressure from the promoters of the article, who have an agenda or a conflict of interest, this is particularly concerning. The following question is very important because the process we use will determine election integrity moving forward. How can we verify that each of our votes was tallied correctly? We would be relying on blind trust with no way for each of us to verify the result of the vote. One way to do that would be to make our votes public so we can see how we and others voted and then do the math ourselves. If that's what we need to do, I'm all for that. If we want to go with anonymity, keep in mind that mobile devices can be used for tracking, especially when the company can hide this fact behind the term proprietary technology. Metalocator.com describes geolocation as a wireless tracking of the physical location of a mobile device to determine the exact location of people in your locality. They admit, like any other trending technology, geolocation has privacy and security concerns, and GPS data could fall into the wrong hands. So I do not recommend switching to electronic tabulating devices and urge people to vote no if they want to maintain control of their vote with verifiable results. The only way I see we can use clickers while verifying the results is to make this public, whether it is using the current way we do things, or we do things, or going to a publicly recorded vote.
Thank you, Kathy. I just want to point out that, again, that this system is not connected to Wi-Fi or to the internet in any way. It's a closed system that uses radio frequency and not either of those other two things. So there really is no way to hack into it. I think I'm also going to let Sean McPeak from the vendor talk a little bit about the security of the system.
Would you like me here or there?
It's better if you could go out there, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean McPeak. I'm with Meridia. We're a Philadelphia company. We've been in business now for 50 years. The technology of the system has been audited and verified by the federal government. It is currently in place in the United States House of Representatives. And before we can get into the halls of Congress, it has the entire federal government scrutiny to get in to operate into that building. It's also currently used by the New Hampshire House of Representatives on the floor. They've been using it now for 2 years, and before it could be installed in the New Hampshire House of Representatives, it also had the entire scrutiny of the New Hampshire government. It is currently used by the U.S. military, specifically the Department of the Naval Warfare Intelligence, to promote leadership. And of course, before it could be done into that organization, it had the full scrutiny of the Naval Intelligence Committee. It's currently used in 50 towns in Massachusetts. Each of those towns had their own public scrutiny of the system. And like your moderator said, it is completely separated from the internet. So there is no internet connectivity. It is simply a closed-loop radio frequency system that has its own level of encryption. It is very secure, and rather than me say so, you have all of the institutions I just mentioned to you who certified the technology.
Thank you, Sean. At the center microphone in front.
Denali Delmar, 8 Dunstable Road. when this first came up a few years ago, I had a lot of questions. I was lucky enough to be in a demonstration a week ago about this, and I'm convinced that it's very reliable and trustworthy. I also felt very strongly about our being able to raise our hands. And please, Madam Moderator, tell me if I've got this correct, that you have decided that we will continue to raise our cards unless it's too hard to call, or unless people call for a more accurate tabulation.
That is the way the article is written, that the electronic vote tabulators would be used when voting is either requested or required.
Thank you.
The method of voting is within the discretion of the moderator, but I particularly wanted this article to come forward to ensure that the town was on board if we were going to make this change. At the center microphone in the back.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. June McMorrow, 8 Kings Pine Road. And I wanted to ask you a question about the anonymity of this. When I just checked in, they noted what clicker I took and wrote that next to my name. So how anonymous is this really? And what will you do with that information after the fact? Thank you.
The teller's designation of what clicker you have will remain in the town clerk's office until we know that the clickers have been returned. It's only so that if a clicker is missing, we know who to contact to ask them to bring it back. It is not in any way connected with the voting and the computer that's accepting those votes. Does that answer your question, June?
Thank you.
At the microphone on the left.
Alan Martin, Meadow Lane. I have 3 questions. Does the town government commit to reveal the actual vote counts for all uses of the clickers rather than merely pass or fail?
I think he needs to, if we have.
We typically always read how much.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Second, is there provision for a bipartisan committee to review the configuration of the system the morning of every town meeting to ensure that it's configured fairly?
The system will be reviewed at every town meeting by the technology department of the town. They'll be in charge of making sure that it's functioning correctly.
Okay. And the third question is, can you now verify, Madam Moderator, that the laptop running Easy Connect software on it to your right is in airplane mode?
I'm going to ask you to.
It's not connected to the internet.
Do you want me to just answer that?
Yes.
Yes, and in addition, it is not connected to the internet.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, to the right.
Thank you. Alex Gonzalez, 2 Elm Street. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've been counting votes manually for over 230 years, but that's not why we should continue. Voting machines, which is essentially what these clickers are, have been a contentious issue. Even in our last local election in May, we had issues with the Dominion voting machines spitting back ballots. Are we really going to trade convenience for trust? Let's remove any doubt or fear from the equation, and let's continue to count votes at town meeting manually.
Thank you. Just a point, one of the things that the Access to Town Meeting Committee has discovered is that a reason that people don't attend town meeting is because of the length of the meeting. So an important part of shortening up the meeting is to bring more people into the process and ensure the participation in our democracy of as many people as possible.
Eric Kintner, 14 Village View Road. Just as a matter of perhaps reassurance for some people, the motion here says that we will use the clickers at this town meeting only. future town meetings, that will be a separate decision.
Again, the discretion about what the method of voting is going to be belongs with the moderator. However, I would not impose anything without at least having the opinion of town meeting here and a use that we can all look back on and say, this went well, this didn't.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Okay. Dennis Galvin, 90 Concord Road. Thank you, Madam Moderator. First of all, I want to appreciate your efforts at trying to communicate this and try to expedite and make this more efficient. There are a few wider considerations, though, I think we should consider. Basically, we're talking about changing a long-standing practice that bears directly on the credibility and the integrity of the town meeting. And in my 40 years of participation with this body, I can say that there has never been an issue with voter impropriety. Most votes are readily accountable, usually through an yea and nay or through a show of hands, and only a small number really become contentious, and those do take some time, but good things like voter integrity are worth waiting for. You mentioned the issue about increased participation, voter suppression. I think in 40 years, we have moved this meeting all over the calendar to try to get people to come in, and it always comes back to the same thing. Those people that think this is important come, and those people that don't come. The implication that this is somehow voter suppression or or lack of participation is unfair. It's a question of priority and choice. And I don't think we can be blind to some of the controversy that we're reading about with regards to the concerns over elections, particularly with electronics. I think the prudent thing for us to do is keep this simple. And I'll simply close by saying that, I hate to say it, but I feel more secure when Paul Murray comes up that tells me that I lost a very important vote than the Meridian Electronics Company. Not that I have anything against them, but I've known Paul Murray and I've trusted Paul Murray for years. And that's the essence of local democracy. So I would suggest that we hold back on voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. At the microphone to let's go to the microphone in the rear in the center.
Hi, Liz Sherry, 10 Cullimore Drive. I would like to know maybe 3 questions. Have we already bought these clickers? What is the long-term financial contract monies involved with these clickers regarding computer updating, loss of clickers? Sounds like we'll have to be paying out of pocket with our tax-paying dollars forever if we go with these clickers. So have we paid for them? If so, how much? And how much will it cost infinitively?
We've rented the clickers for this meeting, the cost of which is approximately $4,000. We can buy the system if this meeting feels that's appropriate, if after this meeting the select board feels that's appropriate, with the $4,000 being applied to a total $12,000 cost. The system lasts approximately 10 years. There's very little in the way of maintenance except for replacement of the batteries, which last several years and cost about 17 cents a piece. Does that answer the questions?
What about replacing the clickers? And what's the contract involved?
There's no contract other than the purchase. Each clicker costs about $30 to replace.
And there's an optional maintenance plan of $495 after year 1.
Sorry, I'm being told there's an optional maintenance plan of approximately $500 a year after year 1.
Thank you.
To my right.
Kathy Panetta Creed. Madam Moderator, you mentioned that 70 towns are using these clickers. It's my understanding that we have approximately 351 towns in our state. So that's only a 20% towns that are using it. So I feel like that's a small percentage, and I think it would be better if we waited.
So,
Thank you.
just a point, not all towns and cities have town meetings. I was trying to get the number for how many towns.
Yes, many have representatives, but I'm not sure.
Right. Sorry, we don't know that number, but it's not 351 towns that have town meetings. And many of the towns that have town meetings have representative town meetings as opposed to open town meeting the way we do. Really, the number to compare would be how many towns have open town meeting. I'm sorry, I can't give you that number. I don't know if anybody else knows offhand. No.
Yeah, if you can find out, that would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Erica?
Erica Cole, 4 Francis Hill Road. Thank you, Madam Moderator. And thank you also for all your intensive investigation into the security question. Much of your work has gone a long way to make me feel more comfortable with these devices. I did have one concern that we had discussed previously regarding the physical security of both devices and the server when they are not in use here. And I also wanted to have just one more question about the updates to the software, whether or not there's any certification process that the software undergoes, and whether those updates are also subjected to that same process before being put onto the server.
I'm going to refer your question about the security of the computer and devices when they're not in use to Mike Wells.
Hello there. Mike Wells, I'm the IT director for the town schools. So our intention would be to take a new laptop or a repurposed laptop and wipe it and build an operating system special